Many of us are investing to reach some sort of financial goal, and for a lot of us, the main goal is to build a big pot of money to be able to live a happy life in retirement. Now, if you're anything like me, you've probably gone to one of these compound interest calculators online and put in how much you can invest each month to see what your potential investment growth will be in the future. For example, say we invest £200 a month for 30 years and give ourselves an 8% return. After 30 years, we end up with £300,000. Now, what if we can double that? Well, £400 a month for 30 years ends up growing to £600,000. And now you're really starting to see how compound interest is starting to work. But what about the bigger numbers? Well, starting from nothing and investing, say, £1,000 the whole time, month after month without fail, you can end up with £1.5 million. Now, as exciting as these numbers are, there is a catch here. And this is something that often gets left out. So stick with me and hopefully it will all make sense in the end. Let's assume for the purpose of this video that our main financial goal is to build a pot of money big enough that will enable us to have a good life in retirement. How much do we need to invest to make that happen? Well, as you'll see later, the truth is that many of us are actually investing much less than we should be. But don't worry, there are steps we can take to ensure financial security as we grow older. According to research by Which, the average UK adult believes they need about £13,000 per year to have a basic lifestyle in retirement. This means having enough money to cover the essentials, such as groceries, transport, utility bills, and so on. For a more comfortable lifestyle, which includes all the basics, but also regular short-haul holidays, recreation and leisure, charity giving, and so on, you will need £20,000 per year in retirement. And lastly, for a luxury lifestyle, you will need £30,000 per year. This includes both essential and comfortable lifestyle costs, but it also means having enough money to go on long holidays, buy a hair club membership, eat out at expensive restaurants, and even buy a new car every 5 years. Now, before we look at what it takes to be able to have this much money for each of these lifestyles, we first need to put things into perspective. According to a 2024 Finder survey, the average person in the UK has £11,185,000 in savings. However, shockingly, almost half the country has £1,000 or less in savings. And if we look at the breakdown by age group, we can see that the average savings pots vary from roughly £3,600 for people who are 18 to 24, all the way to only £36,000 for those who are 74 plus. So unsurprisingly, the value of savings increases with age, and it's only once you get into your stride in your late 40s and 50s when most people have managed to save a bit more. This bit makes sense when you consider that during these early years, the priority for a lot of people is to get onto the housing ladder and save as much money for a deposit as possible. Now, if we look at stocks and shares ISAs, the average amount as of 2021-22 was £8,690. And just a final bit of data for some more context, according to the Office for National Statistics, the typical UK household saves roughly £180 per month, which is the median amount saved each month. That means that 50% of households save less than £180 and the other 50% of households save more. This is the more useful figure, as it's not skewed by the very rich who can afford to save more. And the average savings per month in the UK is £450 per household. This figure is higher than the median figure due to a small number of households with very high savings rates. Now, these figures may be too little for some, but more than enough for others, as everyone's financial situation is personal. But let's dig a little bit deeper to see if these savings rates are enough for those 3 retirement lifestyles that we looked at earlier. So following the 25 times rule, which says that you need 25 times your annual salary to have enough money for 30 years of retirement, you would need a pot of money of about £325,000 for a basic lifestyle, £500,000 for a comfortable lifestyle, and £800,000 to sustain a luxury lifestyle. Now, there is a huge problem with these numbers. None of these figures account for the elephant in the room, inflation. Once you take inflation into account, these figures I've just shown can change massively. For example, assuming an average inflation rate of 3% per year, a £325,000 pot, which is what you need for a basic lifestyle, will be worth only £133,000 in 30 years' time. So in reality, you will need to aim for a pot of £788,000 for a basic lifestyle, which when divided by 25 gives you £31,500 per year in 30 years' time, the equivalent of £13,000 today. For a comfortable lifestyle, a £500,000 pot will be worth £205,000 after 30 years, meaning that you actually need to build a pot of £1.2 million, which will give you £48,000 per year, or £20,000 in today's money. And lastly, £800,000 needed for that luxury luxury lifestyle will actually be worth $329,000 after 3 decades. So you will need to save £1.9 million, which equates to £76,000 per year, or $32,000 in today's money. As you can see, there is a huge difference between the numbers if you actually account for the effects of inflation. I know it sounds crazy, but this is how inflation works, which is why investing rather than saving your money for the long term is so important. That's why we should also gradually increase whatever amount we invest each year in line with the inflation rate, because that way we ensure we'll keep our investment amount the same in real terms. Now, we looked at average savings rates and ISA accounts earlier, but if we actually analyze the average pension pots, the figures are quite scary. According to the latest data by ONS, on average, people between 55 and 64 years old have a pension pot of £107,300. If we use that 25 times rule again, this figure translates to only £4,292 per year for 30 years of retirement. This is a very worrying statistic, and it highlights the lack of financial education and the harsh reality of many people who simply can't afford to invest that much money to reach those amounts that we looked at earlier. So how much do you actually need to invest each month to reach the basic, comfortable and luxury income targets in 30 years time? For a basic lifestyle, if you invest £400 per month for the next 30 years and increase your investment by 3% per year to match the inflation rate, assuming an average return of 8% per year, you would accumulate an investment portfolio of £800,000. When divided by 25, it translates to £32,000 per year, or $13,000 in today's money. For a comfortable lifestyle, you will need to invest £600 per month for the next 30 years and increase it by 3% per year. And assuming an 8% return again, you would grow your portfolio to £1.2 million, or £47,000 per year when divided by 25, which should be just enough for that comfortable lifestyle. And for a luxury lifestyle, which implies an annual income of £76,000 in 30 years time, assuming the same average return of 8% per year, you will need to invest £950 per month and increase it by 3% each year for the next 30 years to grow your portfolio to almost £1.9 million. Therefore, as you can see, this is a lot of money, and all of a sudden it makes things more challenging. However, there are a few things to take into account. So as we discussed, these calculations are based on the 25 times rule. But like any other rule, it has its limitations. One of those limitations is that it focuses only on your personal investment pot and assumes you have no other source of income in retirement. For example, it doesn't take into account workplace pension contributions and state pension. In reality, many of us will also hopefully have these other income sources to fund our lifestyle. We said earlier that we would need £32,000 per year in retirement to live a luxury lifestyle according to that study by Which. This means building a pot of money of £1.9 million over a 30-year time frame. If we manage to save £4,500 per year through our workplace pension, and assuming it returns 5% per year for 30 years, and an increase in our pension contribution of 3% each year to match that inflation rate, we would save £433,000 from the workplace pension alone. When divided by 25, or by using the 4% withdrawal rule, this gives us £17,356 per year. On top of that, we will also get a state pension of about £11,500 per year in today's money, which should also increase with inflation. So again, assuming a 3% inflation rate, that $11,500 will actually be about $27,900 per year in 30 years time. So from these two sources alone, we would have about $45,256 per year. We would then only need to fund another £26,744 per year from our personal investment pot to be able to sustain a luxury lifestyle. Therefore, we need to save another £668,000. If we manage to invest £330 each month, and we also increase this amount by 3% each year, we will be able to grow our investment pot to £663,000. So all these things considered, we would have an annual income of approximately £75,000, which would be just enough to live a luxury lifestyle. Now, these three income retirement targets are just a guide, and not everyone will fall in one of those categories. For some people, they may not even need £13,000 per year for a basic lifestyle, and that might actually be enough for them to live comfortably. The truth is that lifestyles vary from person to person, so income needs will vary from person to person too. Now, what examples like this show is that if we do start in our 30s and 40s, we've still got lots of time left to build up a solid investment pot, assuming that we want to retire in our 60s. this. But there is nothing stopping you from going as far as you want. Going back to the question of whether or not you're investing enough money, the truth is that it really depends on your goal. As we discussed earlier, there isn't really a straight answer because everyone has different priorities in life and different investment goals. But if you do want a rule to stick to, one of the most popular ones is the 4% rule, which basically says that in our retirement, we need to have a big enough amount in our portfolio that would allow us to withdraw 4% each year. So if we work backwards from this, we would multiply what we want to live on per year and times it by 20. For example, if you want 20,000 pounds per year right now, you need a pot of 400,000 pounds. That's quite a lot of money and way out of scope for a lot of people. But don't forget about your workplace pension and that state pension too. Clearly, the most important factor to make a lot of money in investing is going to be how much you can contribute and for how long you're able to sustain it for. If you do want to compare yourself to the rest of the country, then have a look at this data on the screen right now. Out of all the adults in the UK, only 12 million have any kind of ISA account, even if that's just for saving some cash. When it comes to investing in stocks, less than 4 million stocks and shares ISAs are currently used. I assume that since you're watching this video, you're part of that 4 million people, meaning that you're well ahead of a large part of the UK population. The important thing with investing to try to reach some sort of distant goal, such as living happily in retirement, is just making sure that we continue to be as consistent as we can and let that compound interest build over the long term. And sure, we might enter a downturn from time to time where we see our portfolios heavily into the red. But during times like this, we've got to remember why we're doing this in the first place. Otherwise, if you sell everything and just give up, then when the market rebounds, you'll come back in, but you have to pay a much higher price. As a reminder, the S&P 500 has returned investors on average 10% per year. But as you can see from this chart, it's not a straight line up. We've had multiple crashes, wars, various crises, and so on. In reality, the stock market is all over the place. The thing is that many people actually choose to hold cash every time the market falls a little, in anticipation of a big market crash. So watch this video next to find out what Vanguard thinks about this strategy. Is it a genius idea or a fatal mistake? See you there.